Hi, I'm Rosie. Welcome to my channel and to my knitting podcast. Grab a drink or a snack, both your project, and let's get into what I'm making. There is quite a bit to get through today because I've been busy. I thought filming these once a month would be enough, but apparently I make a lot of things. So if I've talked about something before in depth, I probably won't touch on it quite as much as I did, but I will signpost you to where I have talked about things a bit more, and feel free to ask me any questions in the comments if you do have any, because I do have a tendency to leave things out. I've got ADHD. My brain doesn't hold information particularly well. I do have notes though, to try and keep me on track. Firstly, I want to talk about what I'm wearing. This is my cardigan number 9 by My Favourite Things Knitwear. I finished it at the end of last year and it has been my most versatile, most worn knit to date. I don't think I anticipated how much I would be wearing this, because whenever I need a warm layering piece, if I like my outfit but I just need to add some warmth, this generally goes with everything in my wardrobe. It's the perfect kind of neutrally blue, but also it's a different enough colour that it adds an extra dimension to a lot of the outfits that I wear. I'm loving wearing it. The yarn is Knitting for Olive. No surprises. It's holding up really well. It's mohair held with the heavy merino, and it's, not pilled at all because of the mohair. I am incredibly happy with it. Onto my finished objects. Firstly, and this was a whip in the last podcast, but I have finished it and it is delightful. This is my little Lacey scarf. It's a modification of the Sophie Scarf pattern. I don't think I even looked at the Sophie Scarf pattern before making this. I've made enough Sophie Scarf-esque things to know the basics, but I added little lacy eyelet details to this, which was a really fun mental brain exercise. And really, I think this was very much a process knit for me at the beginning of the year, just giving my brain kind of a puzzle knit to do. I've worn it a couple of times. I think I'm kind of realizing it's maybe not my color, but it is very soft and it does go with some of my wardrobe, and I should probably try and challenge myself to make a few more outfits with it. I've also worn it as a headscarf thing once or twice, and I think as my hair gets a bit longer, I will wear it in that way a bit more. So hopefully I'll get a little bit more wear out of it than I have done so far. That being said, I have worn it, just not as much as maybe normally. When I finish things, I wear them loads initially, and this wasn't the case for this one. That being said, I also knew that it was an experimental piece for my wardrobe, something that I wanted to dabble my toes in, just try out a little bit in terms of style. So there is also that aspect to it. If you want to know even more details about it, they'll either be on my Ravelry or in my last knitting podcast. My second finished objects are actually currently wet because I needed to wash them and I was washing all of my other hand knit socks, so they're a little bit damp, so forgive me if I don't hold them up for too long. But these are the slow morning DK socks. It's, I believe, a free pattern and was my first time trying a short row heel, which I thought was really interesting. I liked how easy it was compared to, I normally go for a heel flap and gusset construction, but this was really straightforward and I think quicker than doing the heel flap and gusset. However, and I need some opinions, I need other people to weigh in here, because I don't know if this is just a me thing, that I've made the feet too short, or whether it is the heel construction, because I've heard that it doesn't fit that well. But when I was trying on as I went, before I finished the toe, I was like, this seems to be fitting my foot perfectly. It stretches out, but it's not too tight. It's not, sitting weirdly in any way. And then I finished the length of the foot to the length that I would normally knit a sock foot, with the amount of sort of negative ease I would normally do. And whenever I wear these without shoes, they slip, the heel slips off and under. they just don't, the heels don't stay on the heel of my foot. And I don't know whether that is because of the fit of the short rows or whether I just need to bite the bullet and make the toes a bit longer. But yes, if you've hit that snag with short row socks of your own, I would love to know. Otherwise, very pleased with how these came out. I have been wearing them quite a lot, hence why they needed a wash. The yarn is a new one for me. It's a bit funky. It's a nettle and wool yarn. The yarn is called Onion Knit number 4, and it is, I believe, 80% wool, 20% nettle fibres. So it's completely made of organic material, which love, and also is holding up phenomenally. I don't know why I didn't expect it to, whether it's the fact that it's a DK and therefore going to be more for, you know, bed socks and things anyway, or the fact that it's nettle fibres. I did not expect it to be this hardy. I have worn these at least 10 times with shoes out and about, and I wear Doc Martens, so we're not talking easy on socks shoes either. These are shoes that will make holes in socks if the yarn is not absolutely sturdy and rigid and okay for hardy socks. So considering I made these because I wanted a pair of nice thick walking boot socks, I'm very pleased with the yarn. I don't know how well you can see, but they're definitely pilling around the heel where it rubs against the shoe, but only in not a huge amount and not to an extent that I'm worried about the fabric thinning or the integrity of the sock at all. I imagine at some point they will probably wear holes in them, as most socks do, but so far, with maybe 3 or 4 weeks of wear, I am very pleased. I bought the yarn from Eda's House in Lewis, which is my favourite yarn shop. It's the closest one to me, and they have the sock weight version of this yarn, and I definitely am going to pick some up when I'm next there to make a sock weight sock out of the onion nettle yarn, because I'm just very impressed with how it's come out. Next finished object is my Scoodie knit, my easy Scoodie knit version by Aver, and ooh, isn't she gorgeous? I love a scarf hood. Very pleased with how this one's come out. I found the pattern really interesting. It was completely different to any other sort of hood construction that I'd tried or seen. I do think I've seen people make bonnets this way, but I've never tried it myself. You start at the top and then you go down and then you do the scarf, versus another one that I'll show you in whips where you do the scarf and then the hood. I had a little hiccup with the pattern at first where essentially I didn't follow it. However, since then, Paula has released a updated version of the pattern that clarifies a few things and adds in a few extra diagrams and schematics, so everything is just very clear now, which I think is an incredible update. I hadn't seen anyone else mention about the things that I'd had a struggle with, but they must have, because those were all of the things that I was confused about were the things that were updated. The first was the way that you do the I-cord along the edge. You knit the I-cord twice every time that you come to it, so you can end up with, and mine doesn't really have it anymore, but initially it had this sort of gapping, maybe you can kind of see, gapping between the I-cord and the main fabric that is just not really visible at all anymore now that it's finished and stretched out and all blocked and everything. But when I was initially doing it, I did a couple of rows, had the gapping, and went, no, this must be wrong. Let me do it the way that I've done it before, which is where you just do it once, and then it was way too tight. So I ended up having to undo like half of the scarf back to just the hood. The other thing was she added some schematics for some of the measurements. This is a made to measure pattern, so they're quite important to know where exactly the measurement is and that's a lot clearer now in the pattern. So I'm trying to explain this without kind of telling you exactly how to make it, but I would definitely recommend this pattern. I made it in some leftover yarn from my Daydreamer cardigan by Kudavakika. It's drops alpaca silk and drops Nepal in these two different colours. I think the alpaca silk is like a Bordeaux or burgundy, and then the drops Nepal is called pomegranate. But yes, I've been really loving wearing hoods this winter, so I'm glad to have another one in my collection, which brings my collection total to 2, by the way. My last finished object has a bit more of a serious tone, but I think is important to talk about, and that is my Melt the Ice hat. I decided to make this. I bought the pattern because I wanted to donate towards the cause, and it seemed like a really good way to support what was going on. If you're unaware of the situation, I'll put some resources below. I don't think I'm the best person to educate on the situation in Minnesota with the ice things going on. However, I then decided that I wanted to make the hat as well as just buying the pattern to support, because I want to have it around as a reminder that there are things that you can do. When all of it was blowing up on social media, and I know that it's not over, there is still so much going on that we're not seeing, and I think it's important that we all do our research and make sure that we're still aware of what's going on and support in the ways we can. But when it got really big on social media, that it did feel like I did get into that sort of hopelessness where you're like, what can I do? Especially being over here in the UK, we have our own things going on, and I try to be stuck in and doing what I can in terms of writing to MPs and donating and keeping myself educated. But with all of that, I think making this was a really nice time to reflect, and I just wanted to have it as a visual reminder. I'm going to put it up on my swatch board that you can do something. Even if it feels small, that small thing is a step towards more things. And if we all do one small thing, it can be a big thing. Let's talk about my whips. Now, this one has only had one major update since my last podcast. If you haven't seen that, I initially started out wanting to make a gingham version of the Lakes pullover. However, after many hours spent attempting to make a saddle shoulder gingham design work, and I will caveat that I do think it's possible, I realised that what I wanted was a gingham jumper, and that actually I didn't mind if it wasn't saddle shoulder. And so whilst I really enjoyed the brain puzzle that was trying to make that work, it wasn't working, and I just wanted to actually make this jumper. So I switched to a drop shoulder, and this is where we've got to. It is coming along nicely. I actually haven't touched it in a couple of weeks because I got this far and then I've been knitting on other things. But the yarn for this is Knitting for Olive in Deep Petroleum Blue, Kid Silk Rowan in, I think, Sea Haze, West Yorkshire Spinners Croft in Sea Field, and a yarn that I got on Vinted, which is called Mend It Decay, and I think the colour's Night, but I can't find the label right now. I'm very happy with how it's looking now, and I think it's going to be much easier to make everything line up in the way that I wanted it to line up. I'm also vlogging the process of that, so at some point when it's finished, you'll see everything behind the scenes. Now, I mentioned that I went to Ida's house and got the onion yarn, but the main thing that I went on that particular trip for was yarn for this project, and I think I mentioned it at the end of my last podcast, but I love it. This colour, oh my gosh. I've actually put this on hold for a little bit, and just getting it out and seeing the color makes me immediately want to work on it again and finish it. Because what do you mean? What do you mean? Wow. I'd forgotten how incredible this color is. It's so good. This is Peruvian Highland wool from Filcolana in, I think, mustard is the shade. It's color 136. I think that's the shade. And then Isaga mohair, soft silk mohair in color 22. And that doesn't seem to have a color name. It's just color 22, which is funny to me. And this makes just the perfect kind of golden pairing. I am making a second one of my not Sophie hood, not Alex hood scarf. And as you can see, I've done the scarf bit. Last year I made it in teal. I took sort of the construction inspiration from the Alex hood and the style of the Sophie collection, because a lot of hood scarf patterns, including the Sophie hood that I've seen, have the scarf coming straight down from the hood, and I don't like how that is, because I feel like you're going to end up with extra bulk where the scarf has to turn before you can then wrap it around your neck. So I made that teal version. I'm very pleased with how it came out. I've worn it so much this winter. I wanted to make a second version, and I wanted to make it in yellow because I don't have enough yellow accessories. I don't have any yellow accessories, and yellow is a colour that I love, but find a little bit hard to wear because too much of it feels too bright and intense. And so I figured that an accessory would be the perfect way to bring it into an outfit. The reason I've put this on hold momentarily is just because I haven't had the brain space to do the thinking that is required to recreate the hood that I did last time. I didn't write down what I did, I just kind of made it up. So I'm going to have to look at that scarf and look at the patterns that I referenced and see if I can figure it out again. I'm also going to make notes this time and put them on my Ravelry, because I've had a lot of people ask for a pattern, and I think just the way that I've made this has been very much kind of copying two other patterns and merging them together, and so I'm not going to write an original pattern and sell that. But I will put enough notes that anyone who has those patterns can also recreate this scarf for themselves. The yarn is really lovely. I'm hoping that when it blocks, it drapes quite a bit, because it is quite thick and a little bit stiff, but with my other one over time, it's stretched quite a lot. And so I want to make this one condensed so that as it stretches out with wear, it doesn't then become oversized. My next whip, I started, well, no, I didn't start it until recently, but I did buy the yarn and start swatching and talking about it about a year ago. I bought the yarn on my birthday from a yarn shop in London, and then did swatches, got very excited about it, and then my swatch was off gauge, and so I put it down for about 8 or 9 months. But we're back. This is the CatKnit sweater. I am vlogging it, so there will be a full vlog on it. I'm committing. This is why I keep mentioning these, because sometimes I have a tendency to vlog things and then never edit them. But I'm committing. I am vlogging it. And the most exciting thing about that is that we are adopting a cat. And so in that vlog will be the cat and her arriving and welcoming in, and we have time off booked to settle her in. We've already got a cat called Aslan, and this new cat, she's called Posy. We're adopting her through the Pack project, so we've got some time off to help her adjust and settle in, and I am probably going to be doing a lot of knitting in that time. It's also my birthday in that time, so I'm really looking forward to documenting it actually and sharing that time with you. So look forward to that. But this is where we're up to. They've got little faces. If you saw my swatch week video, you will have seen that I re-swatched this and was on gauge but didn't swatch the colour work, and I am just hoping that it works out. I figured the most important thing was that I was hitting swatch generally, and that I am pretty confident now in my colour work tension that I know that sizing up needles will get me to gauge correctly, but there is always a chance that that I'm wrong. But hopefully I won't get to the end of the yoke and it'll be messed up. It'll be fine, right? It'll be fine. I'm really enjoying the pattern so far. It's been really clear. The colourwork chart is really great. She provides 2 different versions, a light and a dark version. So if you were doing dark on the background and light on the front, you could follow that one instead and it'd be easy to see. The yarn I'm knitting this in is West Yorkshire Spinners Exquisite in this sort of off-white colour, and then I'm holding 2 earth yarn mohairs together to do the contrast, which is maybe a bit risky because obviously that's completely different to what's intended for the colour work, but I think it's working out really nicely. It looks really nicely. It's really soft and fluffy on the inside. These mohairs are expensive. They're very nice mohairs. They, obviously if you're sensitive to mohair, you're sensitive to mohair, but these are the softest mohair I have ever felt in my life. I would sleep in a bed made of these. I would smush my face against them forever. I would wear a beard made out of them. I'm just saying, against even sensitive parts of my skin, I find them absolutely fine. But if you are very sensitive to mohair, oh my gosh, I've got mohair fluff everywhere. If you are very sensitive to mohair, you might still not be okay with them. This, for example, doesn't bother me at all. This is knitting for olive mohair, which also I find very soft. But I don't tend to be too sensitive to mohair anyway. But yes, this is the progress I've made. I made this in just a couple of days of kind of hyperfixating on it. It's very addictive to do the colour work chart, so I'm excited to get back to it, and hopefully once I get onto the stockinette part, despite the fact that it is a essentially kind of sock weight, fingering weight yarn, hopefully I will still have the motivation to finish it because I will want to wear it with my new cat, and I'll have plenty of time to be sitting and knitting. I think I'm going to do a Lord of the Rings marathon on my birthday, so that's like 12 hours of just straight sitting and knitting, so maybe we'll see how much I can get done in a Lord of the Rings extended marathon. Onto the penultimate project whip that I've got. This is an interesting one. I have been designing this hat I've called the Acorn hat, which I have been promising the pattern for a while, and I have been very busy. I've had lots of life admin, so I haven't had time to go down the rabbit hole that is writing and releasing my first ever pattern, but it is on my 2026 bucket list, if you will, so it will at some point come out, I promise. But whilst I haven't been actually writing and doing the sort of things that you need to do in order to release a pattern, which if you've never released a pattern are more things than you could possibly imagine, there's a lot to it, it turns out. Whilst I haven't been doing that, I have been thinking about it and mulling it over in my mind, because there's still like a couple of things I'd like to perfect about it. And one of those things was the fact that every hat that I ever make, I prefer to make top down, because then I know how long I can go on the rim before I'm going to run out of yarn. Whereas if you start bottom up, you have to be very confident that you're going to win yarn chicken, that you're going to have excess amount of yarn, which is all well and good if you're following pattern, but I rarely follow patterns for hats. I have done in the past, but generally I'm pretty confident with my hat construction, and I have this weird thing where I like to have 6 increases or decreases at the top because I prefer that way of making the hats fit, and I like the number 6. However, the way I have previously knit all of my Acorn hats has been bottom up, and the reason for this was that I wasn't confident I'd be able to get the roll on a cast off edge, but that was silly. of course you can get a roll on a cast off edge. I just need to make sure I find the right bind off for it. So I'm testing a top down version. And I wanted this to be in a bit of a chunkier yarn, with a little bit of a bigger loop at the top. I haven't sewn it down, so it's just there. But I have gotten past the increases and I'm on just the plain old stockinette until it's big enough part now. And it might look a little bit small, but something else that I found with the other hats that I've made of the Acorn hat is that they have stretched out a little bit over time, and I think this is because it's a very fitted hat. It is designed to fit to your head. It's got negative ease. I've had it have about 2 inches of negative ease. I think this is going to have a bit more than that, but because it's constantly being stretched over time, it's going to loosen up. So I want to make sure that that is minimized by making it have a bit more negative ease. I'm still figuring it out, but I'm excited to wear this version. This is a wool that was just in my stash. It doesn't have a label, but I think it's just 100% wool that I bought ages and ages ago. And then this is a mohair from Suston Gren. Again, doesn't have a label, but I bought ages and ages ago. But they were just in my stash. So yes. I also, and I'm not going to talk about acquisitions because I've got so many projects in this video, but I will quickly say that I bought some DPNs on Vinted, of all places. Vinted is excellent for secondhand supplies and yarn, by the way, if you are not on that already. But I bought a bunch of just very cheap metal DPNs because I am not really a DPN person. I far prefer either short circumference or magic loop. However, when it comes to hats and things where you are closing a loop, neither of those really suffice for that last fiddly bit, and you can end up getting stretched out stitches using those methods. It is possible to do it, and I have been doing it up to now, but I wanted to get some cheap DPNs so that for specifically knitting hats like this, I could make that part of it a little bit easier. So this is my first project properly using DPNs. I think I knit some socks, or tried to knit some socks on DPNs a while ago, but this feels more like an actual foray into it. I tried it, I liked it. These are not particularly fancy ones. I don't know the brand, they didn't have a brand on, but I now have a set from, I think, like 1 millimeter, 1.5 millimeters, which is crazy. I would probably never use those, to 5 millimeters, and I think these are 4.5s that I used for this hat. On to the final project of my whips. This one is exciting. A couple of these are from my Ravelry queue. If you saw my Ravelry, what's on my Ravelry queue video, a couple of these you will have noticed were on there, and this is one of them. I'm quite literally mid Italian bind off on one of the edges, but I will attempt to show you it regardless. This is the vest number 2 spring edition by My Favourite Things Knitwear. This is another thing that I wanted to test in my wardrobe, kind of a style thing. I feel like I have been drawn to sweater vests, but didn't have any in my wardrobe because I tried them out a couple of years ago and decided they weren't for me. But now I've realised that maybe actually if I style them in the way that is within my style and not just generic Pinterest style, then maybe they are for me. And also they would be a great thing to be able to knit because, oh, I'm dropping stitches, because they take less yarn than a full sweater and are a bit quicker, but also just would add more versatility to project options I have, essentially. I'm loving how it's turning out. Currently doing the neckline, which, oh my gosh, I really just need to go get some needle stoppers. It's my first time doing central double decreases to do a v-neck. It's very satisfying. I'm looking forward to having cast on and seeing how it's turned out. You actually can't clearly see it because the yarn I'm using is quite visually busy, but looking up close and feeling it, I can tell it's there and that it seems to have worked nicely. The yarn I'm using for this is a bit eclectic, as you might be able to tell. I'm using a British wool that I got in a surprise mystery bundle from a yarn shop I can't even remember now. It was a bit of an impulse purchase in a mystery cone bundle thing that they were doing, and one of the cones that I got was this lovely 100% British, very woolly wool. It's very woolly, but it's got this like beautiful kind of heathering where it's brown but it's got orange in it, and yeah, it's just delightful. But I didn't want to just make a plain brown sweater vest because I wanted something a bit more interesting than that, and it's been a while since I've held anything with my Make It Tweed, which is what all of the flecks of colour in this are. This yarn I bought a couple of balls of back in March last year for my birthday. I went round a lot of yarn shops on my birthday last year, hence why a lot of my yarn is from then. But it's Rico Make It Tweed. Highly recommend if you want to just add some fun to a project. My initial plan was to hold this with the Rico Tweed because the pattern calls for a lace weight held with a fingering or sport weight, but which this is. But when I did my first swatch with just those, because the Make It Tweed has sort of a rainbow colour between each of the bobbles, you could see, and you can still see it on the final thing, but the brown was just covered up more than I wanted to, and I didn't love the effect of the kind of essentially white or lighter on the brown. Previously when I've used this, I've used it with a cream colour, so it's not been so obvious. So I decided I wanted to hold it with a mohair, which is Rowan Kid Silk Haze, to bring more of the brown out and haze around the other yarn. So there's a lot of layers to that, but I hope I explained myself well. And I'm very pleased with how the final fabric's coming out. When I did my swatch with the 3 yarns held together, once it was blocked and this yarn particularly bloomed, it was more brown than I think it's coming across now. But even so, I really like this colour. And once I've done the collar and the armhole ribbing, I'm just on the body, and I feel like I'm going to finish it very quickly. So a really enjoyable, fairly quick, for obviously the size of the garment, project. The pattern's good. It's my favourite things. So they're one of those pattern writers where I kind of know that the pattern's going to be clear and well thought out, and I'm not going to have any problems with it. I'm really hoping to finish this soon because I think it's going to be the perfect thing to wear, as it's freezing in the UK at the moment, and it has been basically perpetually freezing since the beginning of since December. I feel like we've just had a fairly consistent cold, wet spell. So I'm looking forward to having this as like an extra warmth layering piece, especially when I want to be doing things and don't want to have things on my sleeves, but also in the spring when I want to have layering and interest in my outfit, but not so much warmth as well. That concludes today's podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed listening to all of the things I'm working on, found some inspiration maybe, or just enjoyed the company while you worked on your project. Let me know in the comments what you're working on, and I will see you again very soon. Bye.